Today we are going to be diving into the biological hardware that kind of runs all of our lives, the brain. We all have one, as much as sometimes we may not wish we don't have one. Have you ever, have you had this moment where you just walk into a room and just immediately forget why you're there or what you're doing, or maybe you feel your brain seize up during a tough conversation? Well, see, we're all not in this by ourselves. This happens very, very frequently. And Mr. David Rock here, he is the author of Your Brain at Work. He argues that, hey, we aren't bad at remembering. We're not bad at thinking. We just don't have the right user manual to use our brains effectively. So his book here, Your Brain at Work looks at how our brains, work and as we all kind of admitted here, sometimes don't work in the context of the modern workplace. So Rock puts this in perspective for us in his book by kind of asking us all, and bear with me here and join with me here, to imagine our conscious thinking. That's our prefrontal cortex at the very front of our brain here. Think of that as a theater stage. Think of that conscious thinking as a stage. So by the end of this 45 minutes or so, we will learn how to manage your actors, all of your thoughts, and kind of understanding the limitations of that stage, your brain, right? We're going to learn how to quiet the audience by learning to apply the SCARF model and hopefully learn to be a better director of your own mind, of your own stage with some mindfulness techniques. So hopefully that all seems very interesting to you. And we're going to just go ahead and dive right in to set our stage by first, kind of taking a step back and learning about our natural limitations to our stage, the natural limitations that are set upon us in our brain here. So our stage here, we have three major limitations that Rock discusses in his book when it comes to our focus and our productivity. First, it might be a little bit mean to say, but it's tiny. You can only fit a few, actors or our thoughts on it at once, right? You can't think of everything all at once all of the time. As much as we all like to think that we can and might be good at multitasking, our brains simply are biologically incapable of doing it effectively or even efficiently. So we can think about this size limitation too in terms of hours. We only have a limited amount of time in the entire day, and only so much of that is designated at work. So that's our first limitation there. It's got a limited capacity, right? It's also power hungry, and this might surprise some of you there, but thinking hard burns brain fuel. It burns glucose faster than almost any other activity. So if you're spending a lot of your time and moments of your day focusing on these really difficult tasks, you can quickly exhaust your fuel supply for the rest of the day. That might be why if you get home on a particularly hard day at work, why you just want to lay on the couch and mold to the cushions, right? You've exhausted that brain glucose. So your brain is hungry and it requires food. The third limitation that Rock points out here is that the audience can be loud, right? Distractions are constantly trying to jump onto the stage and have their own voice, their own thoughts. We can constantly be bombarded with, those surprise emails, phone calls, meetings, and things that can really start to drag our focus and pull our energy away from what we were working on. And it can really start to cause a problem when we need to come back to that problem. Once we've answered that email, how are we going to dive back into that problem or work task that we were working on before. So here are the three major limitations that, again, Rock describes in his book. So while, yes, it is very important to answer those emails, is that the most important thing to do at the beginning of your day here? So Rock goes on to explain that because we have a limitation on that size of our stage, Rock suggests to help our brains out here by putting a little more emphasis on prioritizing your priorities. And one way that we can accomplish this is by utilizing a very simple tool here, and it is called the Eisenhower matrix. Has anyone heard of this tool before, the Eisenhower matrix? So this matrix is really quite simple, and it offers a really a visual tool to visualize your tasks, and kind of you're able, almost like a photo board. You're almost able to reorganize your tasks in a useful way here. So this matrix, again, really quite simple. It involves just two axes. The first here is a scale that you know prioritizes what is urgent and what is not urgent. The second axis is our vertical axis, and that measures what is important and what is not important. So you can see here, these two axes together form four total quadrants with a variance in importance and urgency. So pretty simple so far, right? We can break down these quadrants into a little bit more specifics here. So our important and our urgent quadrant. This first quadrant is our do zone. These are your main tasks that require that immediate attention and are crucial to or line up more with your long-term goals. They demand that focus, that brain glucose, right? And should be dealt with promptly and timely. These are our time-sensitive tasks, or maybe something happens on this Zoom line, and we need some tech support. So that would immediately hop into the important and urgent category here. The next quadrant is our important but not urgent, and this is our growth zone or our scheduling quadrant. These tasks are still, you can see on the scales here, they're still important, but not necessarily as urgent as some of our other tasks. They do contribute to your long-term objectives, but they don't require that immediate action. They don't require that time sensitivity. They should be scheduled and then given the appropriate and sufficient amount of time for thorough completion to prevent them from becoming that urgent task later, right? So these are things that are on our plate that we know we have coming up that we can schedule and plan for. They still need to be completed, but on a larger and longer time scale. So these things, if you have one-on-ones with your employees or your superior, these things are scheduled. They're still important and they happen every week or so, but we don't need to think about them on a daily basis here. Our next quadrant is our urgent but not important. And you can kind of think of this quadrant as that delegation or our minimizing or our interruption zone. So these tasks, they might seem pressing on the surface, but they really need to align more with our longer term goals here in order to move up in that importance scale. So delegating or minimizing your time spent on these tasks is advisable to kind of free you up for those more crucial activities. So these are going to be our lower hanging fruit on the tasks list. Again, they're still they could be still urgent, but a little less important than some of our other tasks. And then finally, in this last quadrant is our not urgent and not important. This is our drop it or our complete distraction quadrant. These tasks are neither urgent nor essential to your long-term goals here, and they're often tasks that should be minimized or eliminated altogether to, again, shift your focus onto more meaningful activities here. So again, this matrix is all about customization for you and your tasks and giving a visual reasoning and prioritizing those tasks that you have on your plate. So the first page offers you room to write down your specific tasks that you need to prioritize with suggestions on how to organize and prioritize tasks efficiently. And then the second page is a blank matrix that you can then fill in as a visual representation to keep you on track. And again, this could be, you could use this matrix for many different things. You could do this as a daily matrix. You could even spread it out to a weekly matrix and even longer. So this matrix is very customizable to you and your specific job and duties and your task list. So hopefully this is a helpful tool. To some of you, it is a new tool, and I do hope you utilize it. So we all now have a way for managing our stage, managing our brain, our focus, and our prioritization. We can now switch gears over to a tool to help us reframe that stage fright, the performance anxiety. I think one of you said earlier here, that's our emotions and our stress. So emotional regulation is just as important for managing your focus, right? Stress, frustration, uncertainty can quickly derail your performance if it goes left unchecked. So our brains, Rock says that our brain treats social threats like criticism or maybe a lack of clear instruction with the same intensity as physical threats, like being hunted down by a predator or something like that, right? So our brain, it struggles to differentiate the difference between those social threats and those physical threats. But fortunately, there are neuroscience-based tools like the SCARF model. And this can really help us to understand and manage those emotional responses, leading to kind of a more calmer and a more productive workday. So to better walk us through this SCARF model, I want to show you a very quick video that kind of puts the SCARF model more in a workplace setting here. So you might have to adjust your volume.
Say you just started an hour-long meeting, and there's no clear agenda. And during that meeting, a coworker shoots down your big idea in front of others. Sounds pretty terrible, right? Now imagine your boss has just assigned you a big new project, but gives you complete control. And when you finish the project, she celebrates the win at a company-wide event. Sounds pretty good. So why exactly does the first scenario sound so bad, and the second one so fulfilling? It all comes down to social threat and reward. The brain sense that other people's actions either put us in danger or keep us safe and happy. The Neuroleadership Institute organizes 5 key domains of social threat and reward, which we call the SCARF model. Those domains are status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. Everyone is sensitive to these 5 to different degrees. Some people may crave certainty and fairness, while others are perfectly happy just to have autonomy. In organizations, an understanding of the SCARF model helps leaders have more effective interactions. When the brain's in a threat state, it shuts down to new ideas and thinking becomes hard. In a reward state, it can think clearly, which is the first step toward having more effective conversations. To find out your own SCARF profile, take 5 minutes to complete the SCARF assessment at neuroleadership.com.
The 5 keys to emotional safety are that status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. So that status is kind of how we're comparing ourselves to others. That certainty is that predictability about what's coming next, right? And if we can have this certainty, it should reduce our anxiety a little bit at least. That autonomy, having that choice, having that control, and this can really help to increase our engagement, relatedness, and that's feeling connected and trusted. And this can really help to improve collaboration throughout the workplace here, and then fairness, and that's perception of being treated justly. And this is really the foundation for trust. It's essential for that trust. And research has shown that supporting these domains can really help to re reduce stress and improve collaboration. It's kind of that name it to tame it, so to speak. So if we put a name to what we are feeling, we can then kind of address it logically. And that assessment link here, we are going to share that with you. But as the video kind of explained, each person is different, and each person in each situation is going to be different. So you can really retake this assessment as many times as needed to if you can't figure out which of these scarf model emotions are kind of being attacked, so to speak. This assessment can really help you pinpoint why you might be upset or frustrated, or where you need to spend your energy and your focus on in addressing those things. So how does this scarf model really help us to reframe here? Maybe you're a part of a project and it's stalling, or you're part of a meeting, it just goes completely sideways, right? Or you're reading this email and the sender probably didn't mean any offense, but you feel personally attacked by that email. You can start by asking yourself this question, which letter of the SCARF acronym is currently being threatened? Which of these am I currently most upset by? So once you can kind of narrow down and diagnose this specific threat, you can kind of put a stop to reacting emotionally and start fixing that structural problem. So if your team maybe is panicking, you might need to inject a little bit more certainty. If you feel, I feel a little disengaged, you might need to ask for maybe a little bit more of autonomy on the next project that you get assigned. So the SCARF model is really an incredible tool because it takes that invisible, sometimes hard to name feeling or emotion, and it places this into a predictable and a biological and natural reaction. This is what is returned after taking the assessment here. So after completing that assessment, this is what you get in an email form. This assessment ranks the different categories of SCARF in importance to you based off of how you answered those assessment questions. It then gives you a breakdown of the categories, explaining why it's important to you, and then strategies to try if that category is currently being threatened. So again, it's a very customizable assessment that you can take many different times, as many times as needed. And it goes into quite a bit of detail on, let's say that you feel like your status is being threatened. In that email breakdown, it gives you some things to think about, some things to try in order to regain some control over that status emotion. This is just a quick summary of SCARF for you guys to reference as needed. It gives examples of what each of the letters in that acronym stand for. It gives examples of what it could look like, putting an emotion to those letters then, as well as reward strategies to try, just to get that brain jump started and back on track. After we have set our stage right, we've reframed our stage fright. Well, guess what? Lights, camera, and actions. So finally, how do we start to solve these complex problems? How do we get our brain to really start thinking about everything? And Mr. Rock says, it's not by thinking harder. So these insights really do happen when our stage is quiet, when all of our actors know their lines. We have the costumes and makeup going, and we've already talked about this a little bit in the chat window here. So think about some of your best ideas. Did they happen when you were just solely focused and zoned in on a very tiny part of the larger problem? Did you guys have those shower thoughts, or while you're walking, did you solve a particularly difficult problem that you were working on 10 minutes ago before you started walking? So it seems to be most of the times, a majority of the times, these large complex problems, our brain forms these connections while our brain is otherwise focused on not the largest problem, right? Yeah, so our brain does incredible things even when we're not trying to focus it itself. Our brain is still thinking and problem solving, right? So the director of your stage, your brain, that director is your mindfulness. It's that part of you that stands in the back of the theater and watches the play in its entirety and taking notes as it goes. So practice the next time you feel stressed. Stop and say, my stage is feeling crowded. Use that scarf model. My autonomy is being threatened, something like that, right? So putting a label to the emotion moves that energy from the emotional centers and it moves it back to the prefrontal cortex, our stage, right? So, Rock says that if we want to be more productive, stop trying to work harder and start trying to work with your biology, work with that mindfulness here. So to give some great resources for you, this presentation, this session is all about resources for you guys. We have a whole slew of mindfulness moments available to you on our professional development webpage. Has anybody, I'm going to put everybody on the spot here. Has anyone been to our professional development webpage before? But this is our professional development website that we've created as a resource for you guys. So up here is just a quick little blurb about who we are. This is our most recent developments. As you can see, our summer shorts here. You can keep scrolling down. We have other course offerings, our supervisory training, and our learning on the fly. And then Miss Kate biweekly does a nice little joke. So if you need a quick little laugh, please visit here and get a nice little joke in for the day. Let's see here. One of the main things, especially in discussing our director, our mindfulness on this left-hand navigation side, if we click the learning on the fly, you can see we bring up 6 different categories here. So we have our e-blasts, and this our quarterly emails that Miss Kate and I send out to our Academy alum and our management moves. So if you prefer reading or if you need a reading break, you can go in here and check some of those out. Here are some of our past live virtual training recordings. So if you just want a quick little blip, maybe you can find something that we have already spent time researching. Maybe we can help you out on our recordings here. We have our very new learning library, which Miss Kate finds a really interesting book and does a great summary on it. You can spend some time in here. We have our Ed Talks, which are like TED Talks, but it's employee development talks instead. We have our podcasts over this way if you want to learn more about some of the agency happenings. We do have a couple of stress visualizations that these are all just audio. And then here in the lower middle, we have our mindfulness minute. And these are all just quick, just a couple of minute breaks that you can take to quiet your brain, refocus your brain, kind of recenter your workday here. So we have a handful of mindfulness moments, and these are just about 30 seconds long each, and you can slide through these. They give you a question to kind of pull you out of that difficult question to think about, and then when you come back, and it's all very peaceful music, you can keep scrolling down and hear from the Greater Good Science Center is a little happiness break if you need that. It's a little meditation to kind of inspire some awe and calmness. Um, Let me walk you through how to do a butterfly hug, which is a great way if you're feeling a lot of anxiety. You can try a butterfly hug to kind of calm down and refocus. Some simple breathing techniques, and then a great infographic. Um, you know, go for a walk. That's what everybody's been doing here. But you can just remember to breathe, try some stretches, call a friend. My favorite thing, this lower right corner here is sleep. Uh, but yeah, so these resources are all for you. They're all free. You don't have to do anything. We do all the hard work. You guys reap all of the benefits from it. So we did cover a lot. We covered our stage and our actors and our limitations, right? And we just covered the scarf model, trying to calm those emotions and reframe them into something a little bit more productive. And then lights, camera, and actions, and directing our mindfulness a little bit better through a multitude of techniques. Hopefully, some of the ones I showed you are new to you and you will utilize, but I love all of those ideas that you all shared in the chat window as well. So take from it what you will. Not everything works for absolutely everybody. So if you find something that works, use it. So as we wrap up today's session, I do want to challenge you. One challenge, it's kind of small, for the rest of the week, maybe into next week. What is one brain-friendly challenge that you'll make this week? What's something you are going to do to protect your focus here? By applying these strategies, single tasking, not multitasking, prioritizing our priorities, supporting yourself by using that scarf model, you can really learn and teach yourself to work more efficiently, lower our stress levels, and accomplish more with less effort. So remember that your brain is your most valuable asset, and hopefully this served as a good reminder to use it wisely.